before Mr. Griffith and Anna Teresa Lorenzo speak, we are going to get a message from Dr. Carlin to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I want to inform the board that this morning we had a very productive conversation with the town manager of Fort Myers Beach, the town attorney, as well as the former principal of Fort Myers Beach Elementary, Dr. Tracy Kohler, who many of you are familiar with. And it was our opportunity to have a discussion on how we can collaborate with the town moving forward. In light of that, I'd like to speak to the fact that why we have this on our agenda for today. We are going to be discussing a feasibility report. The report was requested because Fort Myers Beach Elementary had not previously undergone a comprehensive study of the school after the damage caused by Hurricane Ian. Since that time, we have experienced Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, which have caused additional damage to the school. So this presentation today is our team's, our governance team's first opportunity to learn as much as possible in order to work towards making the most informed decision as we can as it pertains to Fort Myers Beach Elementary School. For those in the audience or watching, there will not be a vote today or a decision made today. The board does not vote at workshops. The information presented will be part of an analysis relied on to formulate a recommendation for the school board's consideration at a future meeting. Based on the discussion we have today, I will have further conversations with my staff and formulate a recommendation for the board's consideration. So thank you, Madam Chair, and we look forward to our discussion today.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Griffin and Anna Teresa Lorenzo.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone in the room hear me clearly?
Can we hear him clearly? Try that again, I'm sorry.
And then this is David Griffith from Accenture PLC, just confirming you guys can all hear me.
Yes, that's better, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Appreciate the introduction from the superintendent, as well as the opportunity to present today to the board. We've had an opportunity to work pretty closely with the school district as we look at the specifics surrounding Fort Myers Beach Elementary School. And before I turn it over to some of the other team members that have been a part of the third-party independent assessment, I wanted to kind of take a moment to look at the overall effort that's been put into the report that was submitted to the district. We did not want to look at this in a single-minded fashion, and instead wanted to make sure we incorporated all of the appropriate team members to give you guys a holistic understanding of the condition and the assessment of the facility. That included a secondary structural assessment to confirm what was previously identified in the report issued in January 2025. That included a hardening and envelope expert who went on site and performed additional studies of the facility, as well as looked at the upcoming expectations for weather events in the area, as well as included MEP, architectural, and cost estimating experts in their field, all who have a long history of working with school districts throughout Florida and an understanding of what's required to keep some of our spaces open and accessible to the students and to the community. So with that in mind, I am going to introduce Anna Paula, who is the principal architect for Via Design Studios, who has spearheaded this effort as we attempt again to make sure we give you guys a third-party independent assessment of what is the best case use moving forward and options for this facility. Anna, are you on the call?
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, ma'am, we can, and I will share the presentation now. Give me a moment.
Okay, so thank you for sharing the screen. As David mentioned, we're an architecture team comprised of many other consultants, and we went on site a few times to do a lot of assessment of the different aspects of the building. But we also analyzed the area. So if we go to the first slide. So we did an assessment of the demographics and also the area and the impact of the hurricanes have had. An assessment of the different schools in the area, the capacity, and what the school had been prior to COVID, through all the different hurricanes from being open and closed. And what we saw is that although the school has a capacity, stated capacity by Lee County Schools of 138 students, and the ILA that's in play, the state that the goal is 150 students, the utilization continues to be below 60 students. So it's about 43% and continues to be very low. We analyzed the area to try to see what the residents in the area are, the median age, which is past 68 years old. And there doesn't seem to be much growth happening in the area as far as school children. There are also choices close by in the area with Heights Elementary and Sanibel. This is only a K-5, where Sanibel is a K-8. And we analyzed all those factors as well as enrollment and what the offerings were. The reopening of the school requires substantial amount of investment by the school board. And as it is, the school board itself already spends nearly 3 times as much in Fort Myers Beach Elementary than they do in other schools. So if we go to the next slide. We studied the climate and the vulnerability of the area and the school itself. And mind you, although you're seeing a few slides here, this is part of a study that's over 100 pages long with all different consultants taking their areas of expertise and going in depth to see their impact of the school and its surroundings. So here you see the amount of flood and the surges that have impacted the building. The school building is at a very low elevation and it's a historic structure. So it's not only the wind that affects it, but mostly the water. The amount of times the building has been underwater for long periods of time have done significant damage to the base of the building itself. And being underwater, and every time it goes underwater, it loses its floor, it loses part of the wall, if not entire walls, plumbing, and all of it has to be replaced. So if you see here, the amount of risk that this building has of another catastrophic event having severe damage to the building is pretty much a guarantee, from erosion to wind to flooding. It's a guarantee that it will happen within the next 5 to 10 years. If we go to the next slide. Here we analyze the financial impact that storms have had and that the school district has put into the school. Since Ian and then post Milton, the school board has already spent $9.7 million into the school to put it back to be operational. And it's still not operational because after Milton, you lost the floors again and you lost the walls again, and there are no restrooms that are operational. So we had a professional cost estimating team to thoroughly analyze what is necessary to put the school back to function. So on top of this $9.7 million that have already been spent on the school, there is still pending another over $3 million more to get it to open. Plus, since a lot of the buildings on site have been demolished due to previous storms, the new cafeteria building that had been designed at $6 million also will need to be built for the school to be truly operational. That means $22.9 million in a 2-year period after both the storms to get the school back up with an enrollment of 59 students. Not only that, but given the history of storms and the amount of damage the storms have caused and what it does damage to come back to being fully operational, the school board would have to plan to budget between $5 to $10 million within 5 to 10 years to put back into the school for further storms that will damage the historic building. So if we go to the next slide. Here you see the options that were considered in order for the school to come back to being operational as a building. If you were to consider just putting the money to putting the school, the building itself to operate, option one is to just repair the building as is, and that's about $7.2 million. This is the project cost. That's all inclusive of everything that's necessary. Now, if you consider not putting the floor back as it is, as an elevator crawl space floor, but filling that space with compacted fill and concrete so that water wouldn't flood the base, that would be an approximate cost of $7.3 million. And I'm saying approximate because to make figures small here, we just summarized it, but there's a lot of backup with very detailed information that backs up all these numbers. Option 3 would be to take the floor out and put a metal floor, but raise the floor on the inside since we can't really touch the outside. Raise the floor on the inside 2 feet so that water will run through the bottom of the building. And now, if it floods, the flooding could go another 2 feet before it starts to damage everything. That has a price tag of $9.9 million. Option 4 is to raise the entire building. That we don't think is financially feasible. The building is a single structure, and being historic, if you start lifting one side, it's very likely the building would start breaking, and historically probably would not be allowed to happen anyways. Another option is to build a brand new building that's elevated in the back and use the front building, the historic building, for something else or restore it at a later point. That is $30 million. And that is not accounting for the $6 million you would still need for a cafeteria or the $4 million that you need to recuperate the building that's already there. We also analyzed thoroughly other temporary systems, protective systems, such as muscle wall, aqua wall, creating a perimeter wall that's concrete and more permanent to stop the flooding from coming into the building. The aqua wall itself came out to be the most cost-effective way, and that has a price tag of nearly $1 million. If we go to the next slide.
Before we advance to the next slide, I did want to take an opportunity to highlight some changes in the estimates on this presentation from some of our preliminary reviews. Preliminary reviews that were submitted to the board were for construction cost only. We have since, as Ana Paula referenced, engaged a third-party cost estimator who, again, works with Miami-Dade College and a number of other school districts throughout Florida, who has identified, some items that we needed to make sure we were incorporating that were missing from the preliminary estimates, as well as included total project costs to the district, not just construction costs. And those total project costs include things like design fees, contingency for unforeseen conditions, and things of that nature. So just wanted to highlight some of the deltas you might be seeing now between the total project costs we've listed now versus the preliminary estimated construction only cost that was submitted previously.
Project costs include AV costs, media costs, furniture costs, permitting, so on and so forth. And if you look at the graphics on the right, you'll notice that the one on the top is the expenditure by the school board on average for schools. That's the far right one in pink. The next two to the left are barrier islands, which are more comparable to Fort Myers Elementary, and then Fort Myers Elementary, which is almost 3 times as much. The graphic on the bottom shows how much money has been spent already since Ian. So the first column being Ian, the second one being Milton. The orange is what is spending to be spent just to open the school without a cafeteria. And then the cost, the last cost would be what the school board will need to budget in the future, that inevitably a storm would come in and would damage the building again, and what it would take to get the building operational. So now if we go to the next slide. So here we're seeing what are some temporary solutions and some things that can be considered. One of the solutions is to continue busing the students to St. Carlos or to Heights Elementary School. Another solution is to rent or purchase modular buildings And the modular buildings can be placed on site and the school could be open as early as fall of 2025 with, as you see on the right, a portable cafeteria unit. So the entire school could be put on portables for now. So at least it could be operational on site if wanted, if desired. And FEMA funding could be possible for some of the solutions. Now, as far as storm protection, we mentioned Aqua Wall, which you see on the bottom right, that has been used in Tampa and other locations. It does not solve the problem, but it does stop some of the surge from coming in, since surge has been what has done the most damage to the building. Other permanent solutions that have been considered are raising the floor, as I mentioned in the option before with the cost, raising the floor in the interior by 2 feet, raising the building we cannot do, or creating a perimeter wall. So then if we go to the next slide. Other alternate options for strategic use of the property would be to create a hybrid model. So not open the building as a traditional K-5 school, but have it as a charter school, but in a hybrid model, meaning that you get other entities to joint use the facility, which means that they could share costs and share impact. Given the age of the community of 68.4, if you provide other uses such as adult education, continuing education, so the school could open as a charter school in the morning and in the afternoon provide all those other services to the community. There are also history, if you like to build a new building in the back, and uses that you could do in the front. There's successful uses of the space here on the right. These are all schools that became something else. Or, as we mentioned, the number one highlighted, they will become a hybrid use. That means that we could do something in the morning educational and in the afternoon educational, but to an older population, or cultural. Then can we go to the next slide? The next slide. We're talking about the survey that was developed. So there was a survey done to try to see what the sentiment for the community was. That survey was distributed to nearly 100 residents of Lee County. The survey took less than a minute to complete. It was only 5 questions. The questions are extremely simple, asking from, are you aware of Fort Myers Beach Elementary? What do you feel has an impact in the community? There were yes or no questions, or if you don't have an opinion. Unfortunately, although nearly 100,000 people were contacted, only 700 responded. There were some that chose not to respond, they declined, and others just didn't do anything at all. That is 0.6%. So that is such a small sampling that is statistically insignificant, and we couldn't really gather enough data. It didn't seem like they were interested. The survey, but the title of the survey was Fort Myers Beach Elementary, so it was very clear. It was about a school and its impact in the community. Some of the summary of what we found from the small sampling we've got is that only a quarter of those that answered even knew about the school. 40% did not know or have an opinion on it. But once asked, do you think it should be open or stay closed, or the historic significance, then it became closer to 50-50. But in reality, we only got 0.6%, so that's statistically insignificant, so we couldn't really take this much into account. Then if we go to the next slide, these are our recommendations and our next steps. Once we analyzed the current condition of the building structurally on a hardening perspective, architecturally, we checked for mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, fire alarm. We did that in-depth analysis. We did the in-depth analysis of the cost estimating, how much it would cost to put it back to be operational. Once we analyzed the impacts of storms and the pretty much guaranteed that it will suffer more and they will be stronger and they'll be worse in the future because the erosion has gotten worse, the storms have gotten stronger and more violent to this area. So given all that, we are suggesting that the school not reopen as a traditional K-5, but instead take more of the charter hybrid approach so that this cost can be shared with other institutions so that the school can have multi-use to justify such low enrollment for such high cost. Operational cost, it operates in a deficit of $300,000 to $500,000 a year, on top of the fact that 3 times as much is spent on the school as others. So we couldn't justify the cost to reopen it traditionally, as opposed to opening as charter and hybrid. We also suggest possibly, because of the ALA or any other concerns, that if there's such a concern to open it locally quickly, would be to do a temporary model and use the portables and use the cafeteria portables and get it operational as soon as possible. If chosen to open in the traditional model or to at least bring it up to be a fully operational building, then we suggest you go with option 2, which is to fill the building and pour the pending $7 million that it would take to get the school back, to get the building back into function. And the reason for that is to stop the flooding of seawater that's doing so much damage to the structure, and also implement the aqua wall, which would be to stop so much stormwater from coming into the site. So we would suggest both of those to get the building up to function, whichever use you may choose to continue with. And I believe that was the last slide. Thank you. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yes, thank you, Ana Paula. Before we turn it back over to the superintendent and the rest of the board, we just want to reiterate, we understand the specific nature of this site and the desire to make sure that we are having a all-encompassing survey that understands all the different aspects of why the school was operational and what the school board needs to do moving forward. As Ana Paula referenced, given all of the different aspects that we were able to review, we cannot make a recommendation that it moves forward in a traditional manner. However, we are available for any questions to support further discussions on how the school board might want to move forward with an action plan. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to ask the superintendent if she has anything before we move on.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much to both of you for your presentation today. And as I said in my opening statement, it is very important that we make decisions based on some type of information that is provided. And a feasibility study is a great place to start. Full disclosure, I am not a contractor. I am a superintendent of schools. I've been a principal. I've been a school leader, district leader, and a teacher. And I know that several of the board members obviously are not contractors as well. So just thank you very much for providing us with information. I will say publicly that there are certainly options here, but there may be other options as well. And so I look forward to our board's conversation today. And of course, to my colleagues on the board, this is our time to ask those very important questions. I know this was a very voluminous report. It took me a couple nights to go through it, and I have a lot of questions myself, but want to be out of respect for you, give you an opportunity to ask those questions or any clarifications that might be necessary. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shaviano, I know you had your hand raised on the Zoom. I'll let you go ahead.
Thank you for that. Yes, and thank you so much for the report. It was very lengthy and very detailed. I think I learned quite a bit, but there was a few pieces I was reading through and just wanted to call out. So I know in the final recommendation, there was a discussion of option 2 as a suggestion with the aqua wall. And with that suggestion of filling that space with concrete, my understanding from reading the report is that even though that is done, that still leaves the school below sea level. And even with the aqua wall, with the additional cost of $1 million, that aqua wall, my understanding, only protects, it says, I think it said 3 to 4 feet. So I'm not quite sure.
Sure, I can take that. I didn't want to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No.
So making some clarifications on what you just stated. The school is not below sea level. However, the Fort Myers Beach has a required elevation level that all new structures have to be built to, and it is below that requirement.
My apologies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
understood. Now, obviously, this is a historic facility, so you are not, this is not a code compliance issue. This is a reasonability of continued use issue. So to what you said, Mrs. Cheviano, yes, the recommendation for option 2 would be to infill the subflooring, which would help with reducing future mitigation costs. But to your point, it would not stop flooding from occurring. Essentially, instead of having to rip out and replace the flooring and any substrate materials that are damaged every time you have an extensive flood event, you would instead be repairing the damages to the occupied area, which are usually, if we are having a Milton level event, there was only 18 to 24 inches in the occupied area. That would be a significantly cheaper restoration activity than what the school district is forced to do now, with the flooring being what it is. I will note that if a Hurricane Ian level event happens, post us moving forward with an option 2, then it would still be a catastrophic damage to the facility, and it would be significant costs to reopening the facility after that time. To answer
Right.
your second, I'm
Sorry,
sorry,
go
to answer your second question about the aqua wall, correct. The aqua wall is not a holistic solution that prevents all flooding. However, it prevents surge flood. It deters, I should say, surge flooding. So some of the largest flooding damages occur during the surge that happens in a storm event. And if you have a 6-foot wall that deters some of that surge flooding from entering your facility, it could reduce the amount of water that impacts your facility and creates damages moving forward. But it would not be, I don't want to present this as if you install the aqua wall, no water's getting in, because that's unlikely to be the situation.
Right, and then my understanding as well was option 3 with metal flooring, raising it the additional 2 feet. So above your level 2 option of filling in this point, even raising it the additional 2 feet would still put it over the level, correct?
Correct. This is all a risk management study in this facility assessment. So again, if we had another Milton level event after moving forward with option 3, we suspect the damages to the facility would have been significant, would be much more insignificant, much more minimized. Whereas again, an Ian level event, you would have still had 7+ feet of water inside your building. So it's all about cost and capital cost to mitigate risk moving forward for different storm level events. And Ana Paula, I don't recall the flood elevation on Fort Myers Beach. Do you recall what it's supposed to be at that area?
I think it's 13 feet.
13 feet. Yeah, so we're significantly below that. And
Was that
raising it 2
7?
feet. Yeah, raising it 2 feet to 9, raising it from 7 to 9 wouldn't get us to the 13, but the closer you are means the more minor storms would be less impactful for mitigation and repair.
And then the one other item that was mentioned in the report in regards to FEMA was the preference for any mitigation measures that were taken, like elevation, in order to be eligible for funding through them. Is that correct?
Can you repeat the question?
It says there was a note, I had to pull the page, I believe it was like 44 or 45 of the report. It said FEMA prefers mitigation measures like elevation for funding eligibility.
Yes, FEMA does prefer some things. In the case of a historic building, it's, you have to play with both factors. They understand it's a historic building, but they would rather fund projects and fund strategies that will prevent for as much further damage as possible, as opposed to just repairing things the way they are. So that's just a preference, of course, because it's, you know, to require less funding in the future. The 2 feet that we're discussing is because of the windows, and the windows are part of the facade, which is part of the historic nature of the building. So we could see that within about 2 feet, it would be okay, we could still do it without causing much, we would still have to go to historic and review that, but it wouldn't be so much of a problem. After that, it starts to be a problem because then you have your floor above windows and you have other code concerns.
Okay.
Yeah, I can add to what Ana Paula just said. Just in terms of historic experience here at School District Lee County, we've been engaging with FEMA on a weekly basis, post-Hurricane Ian still, looking at making sure, number one, the school district receives funding back as much as possible from FEMA to account for mitigation and recovery costs from Ian. But also we have independent meetings with FEMA, again, very regularly, looking at mitigation and hardening activities. So if we pose an option that includes a hardening, such as raising a structure to a better elevation, it is a very strong likelihood that we'd be able to get some of that reimbursed from a FEMA claim.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on to some other board members. They have some comments, and then I can circle back to you, Ms. Chaviano. Mr. Persons?
Yeah, it's a good report as far as the engineering part and everything. I don't like to criticize, but I see a missing part, and I don't know if you were even tasked to find that out. We have a similar schools on Sanibel that has a lot of students, and their demographics would only have about 40% of their students living on the island. 60% of their students come from off the island. Most of those are children of employees. And I know the Fort Myers Beach is having all these new resorts and building going in. And I know the council and everything is working very diligently to get them to promote the school to their employees by doing flexible schedules and possibly playing for before and after school care. So with the track record I see on Sanibel of 60% being outside, I would not be shocked to see that much, or even maybe even more so on the Fort Myers Beach, because it's a win-win. You have employers. It's a great benefit to them to be able to get people, because there's no housing on the island. They can bring their kids with them. If I had not seen movement from the council and from these developments working together, I would go strictly financial and say close the school. But I see a pathway for them to be very viable and to keep a school on the island. So to me, again, this is just my opinion, it just comes down to which option. To be honest with you, there's two histories here. You have a history of a school being on the island, and you have a history of a building on the island. You know, they don't necessarily go together. I think the best path forward, if we decide to keep it, to me, would be to go ahead and put a brand new school there, a new building that will be able to take any surge, like all the new buildings on the beach. I mean, that's where I'm leaning toward, and that would be the most expensive one. So that's a gamble from the board. I don't know if the rest of the board members feel that way, but I just want to let the board know where I'm coming from, because I really feel that, one, looking at the Sanibel school, that you know, that being our model, it should go very well. On a personal note, I had a granddaughter that went to that school, to the Fort Myers Beach School, and she did so because her father and mother lived off the island but worked on the island, and that they brought her and they got special permission, which at that time was not even easy to do. So now we've made it very easy for that to happen, to get permission to come. I think they can come from anywhere in the district. My final thought is most of the employees coming to that island, well, and if they bring their children, they'll be coming from our most populated areas where we don't have enough schools. So that actually helps us out in the east zone, particularly. So that's just where I'm at. Again, not faulting y'all, because that's just something that you almost have to be right here to have experienced and seen. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Rebel?
Yeah, yeah, I have a question. I went through this booklet extensively, and I looked at the electrical in the existing building. If we repair the floor or even raise the floor by concrete, it appears to me that the electrical is still going to be a problem every time we have a storm. Is that the case with the electrical, or are we changing the electrical around in the building where we're going to raise it 6 or 7 or 10 feet? Or no one's talking about that electrical, but that was a lot of damage to that building, the electrical piece itself.
That is accurate. That building receives significant damages every time there's a storm event. And that building is actually at a lower elevation than the historic building. So the storm surge can be less impactful and still impact the electrical facility. I know the school district has reviewed options to raise the electrical facility in a potential future structure that would be built to house the cafeteria. And then similarly, if we went with option 5 and built a new building, we would definitely make sure to incorporate new electrical facilities at that higher elevation. But to your point, if we leave it where it is now, it will continue to see damages every time there's a storm level event.
Okay, I just want to make one more comment on my opinion on this thing. I've looked at this thing long and hard. I know a lot of folks are very committed to the historic value of that building. But being a corporate guy and working for a global company, we've run into situations around the world, if not in the United States, where we get into situations and we got to go with best practices. So guess what? We're not the only Lone Rangers here that have a school that's getting impacted by floodwater, by surge. Go and take a look when you get home tonight. Google search the Outer Banks in North Carolina and see what they did with their school. And I can tell you, they did a pretty darn good job of rebuilding the school, changing the location, and the design that was compatible with the local area. And if you look at the demographics of that particular school, it's pretty close to Fort Myers Beach. But the school itself, that Fort Myers Beach, unfortunately, I hate to be a bad news, but in my opinion, I just don't think we can get back in there. I just don't think I think we're just going to put good money after bad money after bad money, because these storms are going to continue to come. And at that level, even with some of the repairs we're going to make, we're going to keep pouring money into that school. So at this point in time, I'd encourage everyone to take a look at best practices and some of these other locations, not only in Florida, but along the east coast of the Carolinas up into Virginia. And you're going to find there's a lot of communities that have the exact same thing. Only guess what? They made the decision to walk away from the existing old structure, and they admitted that it's a problem. So that's my opinion.
Mr. Fisher?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your responses. Mr. Griffiths, looking at further report, I know Mrs. Chaviano brought it up, and Mr. Ribble. So a lot of these solutions, like looking through it, like the concrete, for example, the electrical work, these things, many of these solutions essentially involve, if it gets flooded again, it will be easy to repair. Am I correct on that take?
Yes.
Okay. Because like Mr. Ribble said, the electrical is obviously an issue. So let's say we do the floor vents or flood vents, concrete, as well as change electricals. For example, in this current situation, would that have made a significant difference in getting back to that school? I know that's a loaded
Be
question.
clear on which one you want. Yeah, I'm not sure which you mean when you say changes in electrical.
So let's say if we had concrete slab right now, some of the electrical work was raised. Again, there's only so much I know can do with that based on the report. And I believe there are flood vents.
Yeah, so I think I get the gist of your question.
Mhm.
The answer is dependent on the level of storm event that comes. Again, if we look at a Hurricane Milton level event, if we had moved forward with option 2, which infills the subfloor level with substrate and concrete, then the damages to the facility, not talking electrical, just the existing facility, would be significantly less costly than they were this year, last year, I should say. Now, for the electrical upgrades, the only solutions that we have really looked at were to either include it in a new facility, which is option 5 on the list that Ana Paula reviewed, or to move forward with the installation of the cafeteria, which also would incorporate a new electrical room and facility in that structure. But the cafeteria building that has been designed and is in progress, I don't want to speak to what stage it's in because I'm not a part of that review. That does not incorporate addressing reopening a facility for which students can continue to have school. So it would not just be that cost, it would be that plus. If we did raise the electrical and we did include the construction, the concrete infill for the sub base, then yes, Hurricane Milton would have been significantly less costly to respond to, but there would still be construction response. There was still 18 to 24 inches of flooding inside the facility in the occupied space. And again, that's just a Hurricane Milton level event. I'm sure all of you are aware, Milton was not the most devastating hurricane that you guys have experienced in the last 5 years. If we have something more robust, then those two solutions would not limit a significant capital investment being required post a hurricane.
Okay, thank you. So a lot of these I look at as mitigation strategies for post-repair. So we're obviously, I hate to say it, we're anticipating a lot of that. So thank you on that. I'm going to ask the superintendent a question. When you brought on forth this consulting group, did you direct or encourage them for any result and outcome?
So no, what we really wanted, Chair Fisher, was an honest look, an objective look at the situation. We were in a posture where we did not have all of the information. And as I disclosed right up front, I am not a contractor. For me to go out there would be a great field trip, but it would not be the opportunity to really understand the various components of this issue. And so truly, we wanted more information. And quite frankly, open disclosure, if we had had this information after Ian, I think there could have been some other opportunities. We may not even be in this situation. So what's done is done. I was not the superintendent at that time, not going to take pot shots there, just saying in retrospect, this would have been great information to have right off the bat. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Carlin. Obviously, many of us on this board have gone through this decision once before, so it's not easy, especially when we're talking about kids in the community. So one of the things that sticks in my mind still, and it did back the last time, was unfortunately for Hurricane Ian was not necessarily the cause for all the issues in Fort Myers Beach. I mean, we were clearly in decline before that. So, I mean, and that's, it's not something that I'm happy to hear, happy to say, but I mean, it kind of just accelerated one of the issues. So, and by that, I don't mean that I'm pushing one way or the other right now. It's something that I really pondered. I know most of the board at that point did when we're looking at it. So, and I was just, right before Milton and Helene, I was actually down visiting with Principal Boxa in Fort Myers Beach, looking through the school and seeing all the progress is made. So hats off to everyone there. Hats off to the community. We've known each other for many years, many of you, and I appreciate your encouragement of that. We also, when I'm looking at it, as a whole, we just went up to Washington, D.C. to lobby on behalf of the school district, and we talked about our capital needs, and I explained that we have approximately 6 schools that we're building in the East Zone over the next 5 years. 7,500 kids, we'll say approximately. I had to look at them and tell them that that's not even close to what we need. So when I'm looking at decision or any other decision, throughout this district, I have to make sure what we're doing is in the best needs of this entire district. So I'm not leaning one way or the other right now, but that's part of the lens I'm looking at. One of the things too, Mr. Persons, I appreciate you did bring up Sanibel. That is another, it's not exactly comparable. It does bring it up. The difference though is right now is there's so much, I agree, there's potential in Fort Myers Beach. I see how hard you've worked, but, Sanibel's been a stable situation for decades with that. And that's one of the differences I'm looking at. So I have nothing further to add at this moment. Thank you.
Ms. Giovanelli, do you have anything at this time?
I do, thank you. So for me, and thank you, Mr. Persons, for bringing up your point of view, because I do think that what you said is probably very valuable, because I believe that this decision shouldn't just be a board decision. First of all, the feasibility report is imperative that we needed this information to make better decisions. And we didn't have that in the prior administration when the decision was made to actually repair the school. So I think at this point in time, I don't think we have enough, by the survey that was given, which was very minuscule as far as I'm concerned, I don't think we have enough community input. We know what the town of Fort Myers Beach, wants, and I respect that. So I think we have to reach out to what Lee County wants. I believe that that's whom we serve, and I believe that we need to get this information out there, like to our partners, like the Horizon Council, who is nothing but businessmen and business people, as well as just even people that I work with, our realtors. That's 9,000. We have 9,000 realtors in Lee County, and they might have a different perspective on the value of a school on the island. And I think that we need to, and even our local delegation and local elected officials, we need to get everyone's opinion and what they see Lee County having a school on the beach, if it should continue, or what that looks like, even if it is a hybrid charter school. I don't believe that this board should be the one solely making that decision. And I would like to see a survey that goes out more broadly and really get the input of the community. Because at the end of the day, that's whom we serve. That's who pays the taxes on getting this school either thumbs up or thumbs down. So I want to see more information out to the community and what the community thinks. And then we go from there to really make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jordan.
Thank you. I think that everyone up here has brought a lot of good items forward, but I think that the survey that went out was to Lee County and not the beach, just based on the meeting that I did listen to from May 28th. I was not invited to that meeting, but I did listen to it yesterday and this morning again. And I heard you loud and clear. I heard the chamber speaking about businesses, how they would come up with some kind of policies or procedures to encourage them to bring their children to work. Working on the beach for many years at Pink Shell, that was not something that any of my staff would have ever done, though, because of the fact of the hours in the hospitality industry. So when I hear you speak on that, I commend you, because I think that's a great opportunity, but will that happen? And as far as the kids on the, and I did also hear how they spoke of when the kids walk down the street, how other people see the children and can tell. They're going to call you and let you know what's happening to those children that are coming from across the bridge, because somebody's coming one way or another. And I think that it's open to everyone in the district. However, they have to provide their own transportation, if I'm not mistaken, to go to the beach. Is that right? Yes. So I think that's something that is kind of another addition to add on to how do we make those numbers grow. And I definitely voted for that school to be rebuilt, because I did believe in that. But I do thank you, Mr. Ribble, for sharing that information. And I am going to look at those schools. And as I looked a couple of years ago when this first took place, I went to Boca Grande and I looked at their charter because they have a charter school. And the community embraces them. And I think they had like 59, approximately the same amount of kids in their school too. And they're still thriving today because they have embraced it. They work together to do that. But I'm interested to see where we go with some other maybe opportunities. And like Ms. Giovanelli said, reaching out to Horizon Council, the realtors, those people to see what their intake would be as well, because it is about the whole community. But yeah, there's still a lot to go over.
So I'm going to actually pivot into a different concern, just because we are really over time on our agenda. Everybody's brought up great points. I'm actually truly concerned about what the kids are going through right now, because every moment outside of a classroom is a moment that the kids are losing, academically speaking, and student achievement is at the top of our priority list. So it's my understanding that they're possibly going to be attending Heights Elementary.
That is
Dr.
correct.
Carlin?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So my suggestion, just my opinion, but as a mom with school-age children, and actually a former teacher at Heights Elementary, I think Doug Palo's outstanding administrator in our district. He has an outstanding staff. They have an amazing PTA that is really involved. And I'm not sure the structure and how those children are going to be going to Heights Elementary. It's my understanding there's one kindergartner. I'm hoping that moving forward within the fall, because that's going to be here before we know it, that those kids are somehow maybe included in the Heights Elementary school population, rather than being the kids from Fort Myers Beach that go to Heights Elementary. I think they would have a better experience all around next academic year, just being a part of the school. There's a lot more that comes with it, just for things you don't even think about, for example, that come right out of a budget. How are you going to manage the soap that's being used in the bathrooms that's coming out of the Heights budget? However, Fort Myers Beach does have their own budget. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That is
Okay,
correct.
I don't
Yes.
want to speak
No, that's
or
correct.
not give truths here, but there's just so much more to it. So moving forward, we've talked about this. I know you're not asking for an opinion, but I'm concerned about what's going to happen in August with those Fort Myers Beach school kids, because I don't want them to lose any more normalcy about what a normal school year looks like. And I want them to be, embraced at Heights. And I would love to see them embrace Heights as their possible temporary home. So that's the topic I wanted to bring up today regarding this. I want to ask one more time, Ms. Shaviano, do you have any other questions? I told you I would circle back. I'm not sure if Mr.
I'll have follow-up.
Okay, all right. Any other comments? Mr. Ribble?
Yeah, just real quickly, I'm just going to disclose the research I did. The name of the school is Oracoke School, Ocracoke. And guess what? Those kids up there are also dolphins. So it's almost a similar situation as we have dolphins on our beach. The other thing is, to our last colleague that made the comment about kids in next year, this process took them 4 years because they were back and forth, kind of like what we are. So I think the sooner we can come up with an agreement on a plan, the better off we're going to be with getting kids placed where they need to be. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Carlin, you want to wrap up?
Yes, thank you very much. So first of all, thank you to our board members that are present, as well as the folks that are appearing remotely. This is a very, very important conversation. This is our first conversation about this feasibility report. I have been furiously writing over here, picking up all the information that you've been sharing. And so my next step is to take this back to our team, to have a robust conversation around all of the issues that you've surfaced. Some of you have disclosed how you feel about moving forward. Some of you still are requesting additional information, so we want to make sure we honor that as well. Something that's very important for the community to understand is we do not take this decision lightly. This is extremely important to us, and some things that I've shared privately, I want to share publicly. I am a 56-year resident of this community. I grew up in Cape Coral. However, our family went out to the beach, both Sanibel and Fort Myers Beach. When Ian came through, it was devastating to the community of Fort Myers Beach Elementary and to the larger beach community. It was devastating to Sanibel. It was devastating to Pine Island and many other areas throughout Lake County. So there is no question. I had never seen a storm come through with the magnitude of that horrific Ian. Unfortunately, we have had additional damage due to the storm, and this has impacted Fort Myers Beach Elementary, certainly, but other schools as well. So what I will share with you is we do not take these decisions lightly. Our heart is with you, as well as many communities that have suffered as a result of not just Ian, but all of the various storms that have come to our community since then. Education is our lifeblood. That's what we do for a living. As Ms. Fleming said, we want all of our children to have a great experience in school, including the children at Fort Myers Beach Elementary. So all of your children are very near and dear to us. We are happy that there's a report here that helps us to make a solid decision. It helps us. It's not the only form of recommendations. We have 5 construction options here. Those are not the only construction options at our disposal. We are limited only by our creativity. That's the only limit we have. And so I invite the Fort Myers Beach community, as well as Lee County, to join us and to think about what are those options that are available. Because we have 5 in our hands right now. There may be others. So we invite you to join us in this conversation. We're proud to have this conversation with you. And very importantly to me, as your superintendent, is to make a wise decision. Not to jump at something that's a shiny object over there and say, that's the one. Or I like 7.5 million, that's just my favorite number. I'm going to go with that option. That's not what we're after in this district. That's not what you're after as a community. What we're after is to make data-based decisions, fact-based decisions, deal with the reality. What are we dealing with here and now? And in the spirit of the interlocal agreement, to move forward in a positive direction. So we're excited about our work with the town council because, again, the town council is with this, is a partner in this ILA. So we're excited about the work. I've had opportunities to, at least one opportunity to talk with the mayor since I've been sworn in as the superintendent. He and I had a very productive conversation a week ago Friday, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. But always know that we want to do what's best in the best interest of your children and all of our children in the school district of Lee County. So thank you very much for the opportunity to have this public conversation, for us to
want to get your
engage
input
in
on
our dialogue, for us to
the beach
bring
school.
some new.
It's a
Absolutely.
challenge. It's,
Yeah,
do you believe that Fort Myers Beach should have a school?
I do. I do. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Thank you, Ms. Lorenzo, for your time this afternoon.
And
We are going to
we want to get your input on the beach school.
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
challenge. It's,
Yeah,
do you believe that Fort Myers Beach should have a school?
I do. I do. Absolutely.